Hi, welcome to Scientific Quest. I'm your host, TJ. Trying out something new with the camera, so let's see how it goes. This is my third week in NaNoWriMo 2019. I'm up to 40,000 words now, so I'm pretty sure I can get to 50,000 no problem in 30 days. My problem is, however, I'm done. The story's done. I'm up to a little over 40,000 words, and I've already done everything. I got my protagonist in trouble. I got him to be in even more trouble, and eventually it all got resolved. So now I have to go back and flesh it out. But 25% more story? That's a lot. It'll decrease my PPW, punch per word. So I'm not sure. I may introduce a secondary plot. Didn't want to go into a romance or something like that, which is the usual way to pad stories up. I don't have a sidekick, so maybe I'll introduce somebody. I don't know. We'll see. In terms of the NaNoWriMo webpage, still not terribly agile. It still has a lot of issues. The badges are slow in coming. You update your word count on time, but it just simply doesn't recognize it. Eventually, of course, it does come through. Right now I'm waiting on one of the badges. I'm not sure which one it was, but I know it didn't come up, so who knows. Anyways, that's about NaNoWriMo. Don't get me wrong, fantastic exercise. I mean, I absolutely loved it. It's a great experience. It's something that I'm really enjoying doing. Having that kind of community behind you. I'm with them on Twitter, I'm with them on Facebook. It's really interesting reading about what people are doing, how they're doing it, the things that happen. Life gets in the way, people have gotten sick, kids have gotten sick, so it's a lot of fun. It really is. I very much recommend it. Again, this is not NaNoWriMo, this is Science Fiction Quest. Quick detail. Last week we spoke about gas in space, atmospheres, and how to breathe and all of that kind of stuff, which is all relevant for another boring day in space. The reason why I bring it up is because serendipitously this week there was a big deal about breaking gas, and there is a great gag reel. Look it up down there. I found it hilarious. So take a look. This week I wanted to talk a little bit about speed in space. Another boring day in space, doesn't go into the details, but they're actually going from Earth to Alpha Centauri B. Alpha Centauri B has an Earth-like planet. It's in the Goldilocks area and all of this and all of that. It probably won't be able to support life as we know it because of different characteristics of that particular planet. But it's good as an exercise. It's the closest one to us. It's a mere 4.2 light years away. So it's close. How would we get there though? That's the question, right? How would we get there? Well, if we were in Star Trek, or if we were in Andromeda, or if we were in any of the science fiction serials, it would be very simple. We'd either go to warp, or we would go to hyperspace, or we would go into a wormhole. And that way we could travel in a very small amount of time with no effect, relativistically speaking. In other words, the ship time would be the same as planet time, and all planet times would be the same, which in itself is insane, but that's how it would work. It works great for TV and for movies. In real life, it probably wouldn't work that way. That's why the way I'm putting it in Another Boring Day in Space is that it's taking them a long time to get from Earth all the way over to Alpha Centauri B. I'm not giving it the name, I'm just saying it's 4.2 light years away. And the time it takes to get there is 11 years. Now you say, okay, so what's the speed at which you are traveling? Well, they are intrepidly traveling at half the speed of light. Wait a minute. Half the speed of light means that they would get there in 2.1 years, not 11. And you'd be right if as soon as they get out of the atmosphere, they could jump to half the speed of light. Think of it as when you get in a car. You're going to get on the freeway and you're going to be going at 65, 70, 55, depending on the speed limit, right? So do you start from your parking lot at 65 miles an hour? Of course not. You start at 0, you build it up slowly, or not so slow, depending on your car. But the point is, we have an acceleration period. So in the novel, I'm going with the accepted premise that we would be very comfortable traveling at 1g. In other words, we could accelerate at 1g acceleration, 1 gravity, for a period of time, and in that time we could go all the way up to half the speed of light and then stop accelerating. So in essence, we would have to traverse at that acceleration approximately 0.15 light years. That's the distance we would have to travel at that acceleration to be at 0.5 of the speed of light. Now that would take time. And remember, you have to brake once you get to your destination. Again, when you're coming off the freeway and you're getting home, you don't go from 65 to 0. You have to slow down and then get to where you're going. So essentially, that's what I'm working with in Another Boring Day in Space. I'm having the ship going at 0.5 speed of light, 0.5 c, for most of the trip. And that's why the trip takes 11.5 years, more or less. Now, how much time is that? Really? Well, it depends. If you're back on Earth, it'll be 11 and a little bit. If you're on the ship, it'll be 10 years exactly. Because on the ship, relative to planetary time, the time will be moving at 0.85, more or less. So it'll be slower. Not as slow as it would be at the speed of light or beyond. But it would indeed be slower. Just a little bit. Just enough for a difference in that amount of time. In the amount of time that it'll take them to go from Earth to Alpha Centauri B. So essentially that's what I'm working with there. Is there a reason to have them accelerate at 1g? The only reason is that's something we could conceivably do with our current technology. A combination between a solar sail and different, up to now theoretical engines, we could get to that speed. It would take an awfully long time, and it would certainly take a combination of engines and solar sails and all of this, because the solar sail will lose a lot of its driving power as it goes further away from the sun. Yeah, but we could have lasers on the ship pointing at the sail. True, all of that is true. However, you have to power the lasers. So then you have to have a energy source for the lasers and so on and so forth. And it has to be powerful enough to be able to drive the sail with the weight of the ship behind it. So there's a lot of problems associated with a solar sailed ship if it was just the solar sail. Now, if you combine that with other engines that we have right now, then you could do it. You'll find a link down below with a NASA documentary, which is very good, referring to all of this, to all of these engines I'm talking about. So there you have it. It's going to be a long trip. It's going to be ship time is going to be about 10 years. So I'm making everybody at the beginning of the trip really young. It's one of the requirements for the trip. You gotta be young, and the reason that you gotta be young is because you're gonna take 10 years to get to where you're going. Your time, the time you're gonna feel that elapsed. I'm also having them sleep about half the time because it just makes sense. I mean, if you have them sleeping half the time, then there's a lot less resources that you need. You need the resources to maintain an active crew half the size. So I have them going into cryopods for every 6 months. And there's a reason for that too. In the novel, I'm making it that after 6 months, your chances of optimal resuscitation are only 99.9%, whereas 6 months or under, your chances of optimal resuscitation are 100%. That's based on a little bit of creative license and the experiences we have today with frozen embryos. Frozen embryos can last for years, and I'm talking many, many years. But then again, we're talking many, many embryos. There's a lot of them that we lose along the way. And they survive that amount of time, but then if you look at the percentage, then you have to see the amount of embryos that have been frozen and how many survive. Do they survive after years of deep freeze? Yes. Do they all survive after years of deep freeze? That's a different kind of question. So I'm making it 6 months, arbitrary. That's because, you know, when you're the author, you're God. So you can do anything you want. So in that switching between the shifts makes it a little bit easier for me to handle certain relationships on board the ship, and it makes for a little bit more intricate drama. So that's pretty much it. This is going to be a relatively short video. I'm not sure how I'm going to flesh out the story. I'm still debating whether it has to make a secondary plot or introduce another tragedy or big problem. We'll see how it goes. I'll let you know next week. This is the first week that my first novel is in the hands of the editor. I've already gotten back 2 preliminary editions. Editors usually request a portion of your novel to take a look at it. Both were pretty positive. I was surprised. I thought I was going to get a lot more criticism, but pretty good. And the most important part, they were absolutely right. The corrections that they suggested were very, very good. I think they improved the narrative, and I think the novel would be that much better for it. So that's all I have for you today. Remember, guys, keep questing, and I hope to see you again. Oh, t-shirt. You can get it at TeePublic or Redbubble. The links are down below.